All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores. I know I'm late. I'm recording this right now at 5:44 a.m. Eastern time, but I just ended up busy. I had to rewatch the game at least one more time. Can't wait to get the all 22 view of everything from NFL.com. I paid for that, so I can't wait to give y'all some film sessions. But for right now, we got to talk about how that game just went down between us and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was a rough loss. Of course, we're going to do a review and analysis. And if you've seen any of my reviews from other games or preseason games, regular season games, or how I review training camp practices, we're going to go position group by position group, starting with the quarterbacks, then the running backs, and the wide receivers, the tight ends, offensive line, all the way down through the defense, and of course special teams as well. We have a lot to talk about special teams wise, man, but some of the most notable things was Emmanuel Forbes bench today. Also, our rookie class just overall disappointed. We got to talk about everybody from our rookie class who played, who didn't, and how well they played or how poorly they played. And also, man, Rivera's curse, man. His draft choices when he was here as the head coach set us back tremendously. We're also going to take a look at some of the guys that we missed out on because of Rivera's draft choices and who we could have had instead of the guys that we do have. All kinds of stuff. We're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I'm going to have you updated on everything. I will be doing call-in live shows usually after games, but this one was so late, and again, I was busy, so I wasn't able to do it. Plan on doing one maybe today, as in Monday or Tuesday or something like that, to basically open up the phone lines for y'all to call in and voice your opinions on everything what happened. Basically get everything off of your chest from how you felt last night's game went, basically. So make sure you pull up for that. Make sure you stay tuned. I will be live streaming every regular season game like I did, play-by-play analysis and all of that type of stuff, man. So I'm super excited, and without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so I want to start with the coaches first, man, because I got a bone to pick with y'all too, man. It wasn't just the players. First of all, what was going on with the time management situations, man? Dan Quinn, I'm looking at you, but I'm also looking at Dave Gardy, who we hired to do just that. What was going on there? Like, first of all, before the half, why didn't we call a timeout when the Buccaneers had the ball to give us 50 seconds to make something shake before the half? Let Jayden just go out there and slang it. I mean, you saw, especially at the end of the game, like that last final offensive drive that we had, where like Jayden Daniels, and this is true with a lot of rookie quarterbacks, especially guys, you know, that are usually dynamic in college, that 2-minute offense is where they work their magic. That's when they're in the flow of things. That's when they're at their best. I feel like that 50-second scenario could have been pretty valuable to Jayden Daniels. I understand you want to protect them, but at the same time, with some of the decisions that you made that we're going to talk about later, clearly the point today was not to protect them. If you were trying to protect them, you wouldn't have ran him up the middle like 3 times today, most notably in that goal line situation, in that one of those, I think it was the last offensive drive where he ended up getting in for the touchdown. They tried to run him right up the A-gap there. They tried to run him up the A-gap like 2 or 3 times today. So the goal couldn't have been to protect them. So I don't understand why y'all didn't just call that timeout and give them 50 seconds to work with before the end of the half. And I'm not the only one that thinks so as well, because you also have my boy, well, first of all, Kevin Sheehan said, not a very good job of trying to get a late half possession. That one is a head scratcher unless they just don't want him out there running with 50 seconds left and no timeouts. They do get the ball to start the second half. I mean, that's a positive way to look at it, but at We Want Dallas quote tweeted that and said, correct, it's at best a mistake. At worst, a sign Quinn doesn't expect to win. Something you'd expect to see in the preseason when the goal is to save for injuries. I completely agree. He also said, not a hot start for that dude, Dave Gardy, which is one of the first things I thought of. Like, didn't we hire this guy to literally do that? They literally hired him to do that specifically, among other responsibilities, be in the booth on game day to help Quinn with replay, time management, strategy, and all of that type of stuff. And that didn't look like he did a good job there. So I'm not sure if we can place all of the blame on Dan Quinn, but I just feel like some of those decisions were so obvious. Even if we're paying Dave Gardy to do that, Dan Quinn, if it's your whistle, if it's your call, make those calls. Call that timeout, man. And why did we keep calling timeouts on offense as well? Now, this one's more Cliff Kingsbury wise, but I mean, we were just calling offense in the first half and then very early in the second half. Matter of fact, 10 seconds into the second half, 10 seconds into the third quarter, we had to call a timeout on offense because I guess we were unprepared. We weren't ready, and we were going to end up getting a delay of game or something like that. We couldn't get set. I mean, that was just crazy. And then also, we didn't go for 2 when the game was relatively in reach, like mid-game when we scored a touchdown. But then we went for 2 when the game was clearly over. I'm very confused there. Dave Gardy, Dan Quinn, somebody needs to speak up, man. I'm surprised that wasn't like one of the main points of emphasis in that press conference after the game, man. Are y'all good? Like going for 2, down 17 with 72 seconds left, that's when y'all wanted to go for 2? Are y'all okay? I'm just checking on y'all, man, because clearly something must be going wrong there mentally or something. Are y'all tired? Let us know, man. Us fans will understand. Now, moving on to the refs, and I hate to acknowledge the refs. I really do, because I'm just one of those guys that believes that you have to play well enough to where they can't even make you lose the game. You should never be in a situation where the game is even close enough for the refs to even have that sort of power over the game. They shouldn't even be in the realm of possibilities of people who we can blame for a loss. They just shouldn't be. But that block in the back call, man, that was crazy. Even though Olamide Zaccheaus, don't even try that. He could have made a play his own. It wasn't even worth you even looking like you probably did it. I still feel like he didn't do it, which again, I blame the refs for that. But I mean, first of all, that was just a big difference between a first down that may have turned into a touchdown and a third down that resulted in 0 points. So that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, I hate blaming the refs, but like that's one of those ones that was like a 7-point difference right there. And then most importantly, even ignoring the block in the back, we can accept. Bad calls happen all the time, especially against us. We're not new to that. But since when can you replay a call you made on the field with no official review? That was crazy. What happened to, like, first of all, like, that's just not supposed to happen at all, period. But then y'all are going to do that illegal review out of nowhere for no reason. The Buccaneers didn't ask for that to be reviewed. They just suddenly did that out of nowhere. You're going to do it for them, but then you didn't do it for us in that block in the back situation. They picked up a lot of flags throughout that day. That was just a really weird ref day. Those guys seemed tired. They were stuttering, saying the wrong wording and for a lot of things. It was just a bad day for the refs, man. Again, at the end of the day, though, even though the refs were bad, I don't feel like we played well enough to win that game regardless, so I'm not going to blame them, but I just felt like that needed to be something that had to be addressed in this video. I couldn't just go this entire video without talking about them. I prefer to just go ahead and get them out the way so we could truly analyze what went wrong with this game, because if I had to do a list of the top 10 reasons we lost this game, the refs wouldn't be in it, but that had to be addressed. Now, moving on to the quarterback position. Thank goodness Jayden Daniels is the only quarterback I have to talk about today. I hope that lasts forever, for the next 10, 15 years plus. I hope Jayden Daniels is the only quarterback I ever have to talk about in regular season games. But, I mean, his first play as a Commander was atrocious, man. That inaccurate throw in the backfield to Brian Robinson, and technically, since he threw it backwards, that was a fumble. That was a big-time loss, and that pretty much, I mean, first of all, that ruined the drive, but that also got us off to a really bad start to start that entire game. Our defense allowed 3, which seemed like fairly easy points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They should have had a touchdown if Baker Mayfield didn't overthrow an open receiver. So we should have been down 7-0, but we were down 3-0 at the time. And then our offense went out there and just completely gave up on the first drive. That's mostly to blame Jayden Daniels for that one, for sure. But, man, can't lie. Jayden Daniels' legs were a pleasant surprise today, man. We saw them in his college tape a lot. He looked explosive, and I remember bringing that stat to y'all that he's just as fast as Tyreek Hill when he reaches his top speed. Tyreek Hill, when he reaches his top speed, compared to what Jayden Daniels, when he reached his top speed against Florida, that one, like, 80-yard run he had. Like, he's very fast. We saw that, but we didn't really get to see it at the NFL level in the offseason and the preseason and things like that. So it was kind of one of those things. Is he just fast for college, or is he just actually that fast, and even at the NFL level he could do it? So it was just really nice to see that not only does he have NFL speed, but he has elite NFL speed as well. And he looked like the fastest player on the field a couple of those scrambles, man. And his scrambling ability did help hide how bad the O-line was at times today. His ability to avoid sacks definitely helped. But Jayden Daniels, man, I'm proud of him for getting down for the most part. But boy, his slide was really ugly, man. But at least he wasn't giving himself a concussion by hitting his head on the ground when sliding like RG3 used to do. Because even before he ended up with that terrible ACL, leg just completely gone injury against the Ravens when that, I forgot the defensive lineman that ran into him or whatever. Even before then, he just didn't know how to slide. He would just slide and hit the back of his head on the field and stuff. It was crazy. It looked so dangerous. Now, Jayden Daniels is not a good slider just yet, but it's nowhere near as bad as RG3. It's nowhere near that. And up and until like the fourth quarter, his scrambling was all we really had on offense, man. It was literally the entire offense at a certain point. Like at a certain point early in the game in the first quarter, his 46 rushing yards was the majority of our offense at that point because we only had 77 total yards and his legs were 46 of them alone. That is crazy. But there are two questions and concerns for me when it comes to that running stuff. Number one, was he running as a result because Jayden wasn't processing well? Like, was he not seeing receivers that were open potentially? Got to look at the all-22 for that. And also, was he running from the first sight of pressure rather than, sliding around, moving around in the pocket, or at least even when he's scrambling outside of the pocket, extending the play, using his legs to buy time to find an open receiver down the field? Like, was he missing those things? Yeah, those highlights were nice. Him running was really exciting, but was he missing the bigger picture there? And then my second question / concern was, how much can he do that and stay healthy? That's obviously my next biggest concern. That's arguably the biggest concern because, first of all, how long can he do that and stay healthy? But also, even just stay effective. Like, teams will eventually adjust and game plan against that. And then when they do, what are we going to do? Because Jayden Daniels' legs were our entire offense for the majority of that game. If a team decides that the one thing you not going to be able to do is run the ball with Jayden Daniels, with him scrambling or whatever, then what are we going to do? When a team decides to shut that down specifically, what is our next plan of action? Cliff Kingsbury and the rest of the offense. I mean, Todd Bowles even talked about it after the game. He was asked about specifically shutting down Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. On the Bucs, on how the Buccaneers were so effective against Terry McLaurin, he said, quote, paid attention to him. Number one, he's a hell of a receiver. Jayden Daniels can beat you with his legs, but that takes time. McLaurin can beat you in about 2 seconds, and that doesn't take time. So we had to make sure we paid good attention to him, unquote. So basically he said that Terry McLaurin was like the main focus for what they wanted to stop coming into this game. Before the game even started, their goal was stop Terry McLaurin first, worry about everybody else after that. But then he was asked on what the team's defense was able to do in the second half, limiting Jayden Daniels' rushing, because he still got off a few scrambles, but it wasn't as phenomenal as the first half rushing scrambles that he had. He said, quote, we changed up some things and maybe 5-man pressure to take up some of the gaps with Kalijah Cansey and Logan Hall down. We weren't as fast in there, as quick in there, so to speak. So some of the balls got out and we understood that. Again, better him running than McLaurin catching the ball. So we tried to clean that up in the second half some, unquote. So again, teams, as we saw in that game, adjust. Like, within the middle of the first game, from the first half to the second half, there was clearly an adjustment to focus on stopping Jayden Daniels' legs a little bit more. So like I said, when teams have weeks to prepare, months to prepare, what are we going to do when their main goal is to stop Jayden Daniels' legs? I guess apparently the goal right now to stop the Commanders' offense from being successful, stop Terry McLaurin first, stop Jayden Daniels' legs second. We got to find a way to counterpunch that, man. And then just going back to the question of running a lot healthy-wise, I mean, Jayden Daniels took his first legit hit in his NFL career and his helmet popped off. Now, granted, it ended up being a penalty and he shrugged it off like it was nothing, but how many times can he keep taking hits like that and stay healthy? Like, you got to learn how to get down just a little bit sooner. I think he's underestimating the speed in the NFL. Yeah, you're fast, but these other guys are fast as well, and I think he started to he started to time it a little bit better as the game went on, like being able to get down without taking contact. But in that first half, some of those times he tried to get down, he got down slightly too late and he still ended up getting hit because of it. I feel like he was underestimating their speed in that first half. He got it a little bit better in the second half. And then in the second half, man, I mean, I liked what I saw, kind of. Like, there's good because it worked, but at the same time, we got to protect them. In that second half, Jayden Daniels had 2 design runs in a row. It was the 4th and 1 conversion. That was a pretty nice play there. And then the 1st and 10 right afterwards. And those were his first 2 design runs of his career. But my main point is, up to that point, all of his runs were pass plays that he scrambled on. So I'm still confused. Like I was asking all stream live with the chat, all of y'all that were there watching the game with me live, all of us together, is Jayden Daniels just like, are the receivers just not open? Or is Jayden Daniels not seeing the receivers that are open? Or is the offensive line not giving him time to get to those receivers that are open? I feel like it was probably a combination of all 3. But at the same time, though, shouts out Jayden Daniels because he rushed 7 times for 56 yards in the first half. That is the most rushing yards by a Washington rookie quarterback in the first half of a game in franchise history. Also, Jayden Daniels became the first quarterback in NFL history to have 80+ rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in his NFL debut. Even my dog Cam Newton from Westlake ain't even do that, man. Also, shouts out to Nikki Javala for this one. Jayden Daniels' 88 rushing yards were the most by a rookie quarterback in a season opening game in the Super Bowl era, and the second most by a quarterback in his first career game in the Super Bowl era. Kevin Hogan with 104 rushing yards in 2016. Daniels and Kenny Pickett are the only quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era with multiple rush touchdowns in their first career game. Kenny Pickett's career didn't pan out. Hopefully Jayden Daniels' does, though. I don't want to be in any company with Kenny Pickett and it's just me and him. So hopefully Jayden Daniels, you shrug that off. You have a different trajectory in your career path than what Kenny Pickett has going on right now. But even with how great he was with his legs, he still has room to grow as a passer. Like, first of all, seeing open receivers, like I already talked about, but also accuracy as well. Jayden Daniels opened up the second half, the very first play, and shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for this play, because if it would have worked, people would be talking far more highly about Cliff Kingsbury after the end of that game than they are, just simply because of a play that it was a great play call from him, but it just didn't work out. But it was a deep shot to Terry McLaurin, the very first play of the second half. He had Jamel Dean beat on a go route by at least 2 steps, but Jayden Daniels overthrew him. And then there were a couple of passes in there where Jayden Daniels wasn't accurate. I mean, again, the very first pass, the very first play of his NFL career was an inaccurate pass to Brian Robinson behind the line of scrimmage backwards, so it ended up being like a loss of 15 on a fumble technically. But even like a Zach Ertz completion that he had at some point in the game was thrown slightly behind. Great job by Zach Ertz to still catch it, and it still got there to him. Like, I'm not trying to be extremely nitpicky with Jayden Daniels, but he wasn't as accurate as I expected. I thought accuracy was one of like his main strengths, and I still believe it can be, but maybe this was just first game jitters or something. He looked far more accurate and confident in those preseason games, but then again, that was preseason. But hey man, shouts out to him, because it took until like the late third quarter, early fourth quarter for him to finally have a completion of 10+ air yards in the game. He already had a completion of 10+ yards before that with dump offs to running backs like Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. We're definitely going to talk about them when we get to the running back part of this video. But when we're talking about air yards, like 10+ yards in the air before the receiver even catches it, his first one was like end of third quarter, early fourth quarter to Olamide Zaccheaus. That is insane with the guy that I thought we were going to excel at deep shots. Now, he did try one to Terry McLaurin earlier in the game, sometime in the first half. I think it was like the second quarter or something like that. But it kind of looked like he just threw it out of bounds. I mean, it was so overthrown that I feel like he was more so just like, let me just throw this out of bounds and let me make sure it's at least close enough to Terry McLaurin to where they don't like throw a flag or something like that for, intentional grounding or something like that. And let's just live to fight another play, basically. But hey, man, I mean, you see the flashes in Jayden Daniels. I'm not going to lie. I'm worried about accuracy right now. Well, not necessarily worried, but I'm just pointing out the fact that he wasn't accurate. The only real worry I have right now is like, is he not reading defenses, or is he not seeing receivers that are open, and also staying healthy? But overall, man, we saw some flashes. Shouts out to Mark Bullock, because he brings up a great point. Daniel Jones is a cheat code once they're inside the 5-yard line. It's so hard to stop a run game with him involved that close to the goal line. I completely agree. That's why he ended up with 2 touchdown runs today. And then shouts out to Jayden Daniels, because after his first career touchdown, he hit the Quan, man. And as somebody from Atlanta, man, that almost brought tears to my eyes, man. RIP, my man, Quan, man. Atlanta salutes you for that, Jayden Daniels. That was a real one, man. Big respect from the Atlanta area on that one, man. I already loved his talent, but I'm really learning to love his personality as well, man. It's been growing on me throughout it's not like I never didn't like him, but you know, I went in like, okay, this guy seems pretty humble and quiet. I didn't really know much about him until after we drafted him. But since this training camp and things like that, we've gotten to like, you know, dive a little bit deeper into who he is as a person, and I'm loving him more and more every single day. And that right there was pretty much the cherry on top. And then even after that, and y'all know I love my trash talkers. My favorite football players of all time are pure trash talkers. That's just what I'm into. Basketball, AI, Westbrook, and then Anthony Edwards on multiple levels of, I mean, he's the most relatable athlete I've ever seen, regardless of sport, whoever. Like, I feel like I already know him just from my friends, my cousins, everybody. I mean, literally the way he talks, acts, everything, literally is us. But even beyond that, just the trash talk and the personality with football, Cam Newton, Adam Pac-Man Jones, again, that's more of like a Westlake High School thing. But even like Marcus Peters and Marshawn Lynch, Chad Johnson, I'm just a big trash talk type of guy. And Jayden Daniels is starting to show me some of that, because apparently, according to Seawall Sports, at a certain point in the game, we went to commercial break because of a severe injury to a Buccaneers defensive back. But while we were on commercial break, the defense was on the field, and apparently Jayden Daniels was on the field with our defense talking trash to the Buccaneers. And I love that. That's completely unnecessary. This game is ugly already, and he's still standing his ground and talking his trash. He does not need to be on the field. The offense has literally no reason to be on the field. As the quarterback, he has no reason to be on the field. Just to be up there talking trash to the Buccaneers wild down, I absolutely love that, man. I mean, when people said that he was the Anthony Edwards of the NFL, I was looking at it like, I mean, does he actually have that type of personality? It's starting to seem like he kind of does, man. So I'm really excited about that. Also, shouts out to Mason Kinahan for this, because Jayden Daniels' passing chart versus the Buccaneers was not a very pretty one. He had one completion beyond 10 yards, only 3 attempts beyond 10 yards, and he was 7 of 17 on completions that were behind the line of scrimmage. That's not very good at all. He showed what he could do with his legs, but not much was working in the passing game. I completely agree there. Also, shouts out to Dickie Javala for providing this stat from @NextGenStats. Jayden Daniels scrambled on 23.5% of his dropbacks versus the Bucs. That's the 6th highest rate by any quarterback in a single game since 2022, with a minimum of 10 dropbacks. That's not good. That was one of the worries and concerns about him coming out of LSU, is that this is the type of guy that once he starts to run, he's not looking to throw the ball, he's looking to take off. And we did see some of that this first game. Hopefully he can learn to look up and find some receivers down the field, because we can't have you taking hits, man. And again, he wasn't perfect, and I wouldn't even necessarily say that he was great, but can we please not waste away his rookie contract? Again, you saw the signs. Get this man a good team around him, and can we please protect him, man? Shouts out to Oblon for this one, because it's crazy. Jayden Daniels had the 7th best EPA per play out of any quarterback in the NFL today. Well, technically yesterday, as in Sunday. But sadly for us, Baker Mayfield was first. But it was Baker Mayfield, then Josh Allen, then Pat Mahomes, then Sam Darnold, then Derek Carr, then CJ Stroud, then Jayden Daniels 7th. That's actually pretty crazy, man. So that's a phenomenal rookie performance to start it off. Even though, again, I want him to get way better. I want him to improve mightily from a passing standpoint. But those legs helped him out a lot, man. And that's always been the argument with him coming out of college, why we should draft him when in doubt, until he can get the passing part of it down. At the very least, he has his legs that can keep you in the games. And now, granted, it felt like this game was out of reach for a long time, but Jayden Daniels at least kept it entertaining and interesting, man. And shouts out to Tan Top Podcast, because I completely agree with this. Towards the end of the game, I absolutely hate Jayden Daniels barreling into the end zone at the end of a meaningless game. The game is out of reach. It's already a double-digit lead with like less than a minute left. Why are we sending our franchise quarterback up the A-gap in a goal line situation, man? It's not that serious. But also, Jayden Daniels does need to tighten his chin strap, man. That man lost his helmet twice today. We can't keep having that, because one of those plays that I think we tried to do like a QB sneak with him or whatever, and he would have gotten the first down technically, but you're officially ruled down once your helmet comes off, especially as a quarterback. And because his helmet came off, he was ruled down before he got across, but after his helmet came off, he got there. So if his helmet would have just stayed on, he would have been good to go. But hey, man, at least he got his 2nd rushing touchdown of the day near the end of the game. So at least we can hang our hat on that. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in his rookie debut for the NFL. That's pretty cool, man. I'm not going to lie. And we can also hang our hat on the fact that even though JD wasn't great, He played better than Caleb Williams. Okay, he just so happened to have the worst defense between the two. Really much, like, way worse. But, hey, at least he outperformed Caleb Williams. He wasn't great, but he outperformed him. I mean, Caleb Williams went 14 of 19 for 93 yards. Come on, dog. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jayden Daniels threw less passes, completed more passes, and doubled Caleb Williams' yards, almost doubled his yards, 17 of 24 with 184 passing yards, plus 2 rushing touchdowns. And then you have Bo Nix, who went 26 of 42, 138 passing yards. So he threw the ball 18 more times than Jayden Daniels. Caleb Williams threw the ball 5 more times than Jayden Daniels, and yet both of those guys had less yards passing. Bo Nix had 138. Again, Caleb Williams didn't even get to 100. Jayden Daniels had 184. So while a lot of people are panicking and act like the world is over and Jayden Daniels a bust or anything like that, Caleb Williams and Bo Nix were both considerably worse than him today. Bo Nix threw 2 interceptions with no touchdowns. At least Jayden Daniels protected the ball. That's at least one thing we can say. He did not put the ball in harm's way, other than that one fumble that he had on the strip sack where that wasn't even his fault. Andrew Wiley and Cornelius Lucas got beat so fast that there was just no way he should have even had time to prepare. So I don't blame him for that at all, and we still recovered it anyway. But shouts out to Grant Paulson for this, because again, I'm kind of going back and forth with the this is good, but this is also bad. This is good, but this is bad. Back to the bad. If Jayden Daniels runs the ball 16 times every week like he did in that game against the Buccaneers, he would have carried the ball for 272 times this season. The record for rushing attempts by a quarterback in a single season is Lamar Jackson with 176. Again, 272 based on projection for Jayden Daniels if he runs the ball as much as he did this game for every game this season. That is not good. That's unacceptable. Please, let's not do that. Tan Todd Podcast actually pointed out the fact that Jayden Daniels is on pace for 272 carries and 1,496 rushing yards. Sounds nice, but it actually isn't for real. Like, that's not what we want at all, to be completely honest with you. And speaking of running the ball, how about let's go ahead and make this smooth transition to the running backs. We have a lot to talk about there, man. And so, running back wise, I was begging for somebody to make a play other than Jayden Daniels, man. And I wasn't even just looking at the running backs. I was looking at the receivers. I was looking at the tight ends. And shouts out to the running backs, because it was Austin Ekeler. Again, at a certain point in that game, Jayden Daniels was the entire offense. And then Austin Ekeler had a big-time catch and run. And he looked pretty explosive, man, on that play. He looked like he found the fountain of youth at certain times today, man. I mean, he had a couple of big plays in the receiving game. He had a great block for Brian Robinson. We're going to talk about that soon. And it's crazy, too, because when I looked at what he did last year for the Chargers, he didn't look very explosive. I was worried about the fact that he maybe missed a step, but he looked pretty explosive with us this offseason and against the Buccaneers last night. So I'll take it, man. I'm liking what I'm seeing there. And Brian Robinson had a great game from what I saw. Now, granted, the all-22 footage will show all of it, but man, I would say our running back group was probably the most valuable group of the day. If we're talking about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, D-line, linebackers, cornerbacks, safeties, special teams, whatever. If we had to break everybody up into their position groups and rank the positions of who played the best to the worst, and it's hard to say the best because nobody was really perfect today. I wouldn't really say anybody was exceptional, any particular position group, but the running backs would probably be number one on the list, and Brian Robinson's a huge reason for that. That man had 40 yards rushing and 49 yards receiving and a rushing touchdown, man. This guy really mattered. He was killing it with yards after contact. I feel like most of his yards last night, even running and receiving, were after yards after contact, man. I really do. From what I saw, that boy was breaking tackles and was really hard to bring down, and it was phenomenal. There was even one play where he should have been stopped at the line of scrimmage, broke a tackle, and made it to like a 3-yard gain. It was like little things like that that really add up. Brian Robinson played really well today, in my opinion. And then later on in the game, he had that big play, and I know a lot of people are looking at Brian Robinson because that was him, that he almost scored a touchdown. He got tackled at the 1-yard line, made a lot of people miss, broke some tackles and things like that. But I feel like what is really being slept on was Austin Ekeler's blocking that entire play. He was blocking his tail off on that big play for Brian Robinson after that short catch, man. And that ended up leading to an easy Jayden Daniels touchdown right afterwards. And also, I do want to point out the fact from that play, I just said Brian Robinson had a great play and Austin Ekeler Eckler was doing a great job of blocking for him. That means both of those guys were on the field at the same time. That's really interesting. As like a Cliff Kingsbury note, like there will be times where Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler are on the field at the same time, and I like that. I like that creativity. I think they can handle it. You saw that explosive play come from it. I want to see more. And then really out of the running back group, now granted, I got to look at the all 22 footage and really do like a serious film review to, see what actually for real happened. But the only obvious concern / complaint that I have with the running back group was the play where I questioned live if that was Austin Eckler's fault on that sack on Jayden Daniels to cause 3rd and 20, which ended up leading us to punting because we, of course, did not convert that 3rd and 20. Only the Buccaneers can convert long third downs in that game. But it was clearly like a free rusher that got to him for the second sack of the day that he took. And the first one was clearly at fault of Cornelius Lucas and Andrew Wiley, but that second one may have been Austin Eckler's fault. Like maybe he was supposed to chip the linebacker before he leaked out underneath as a receiver. He just went and just straight up just ran his route and looked for Jayden Daniels to throw him the ball. So maybe that's his fault, but I'm not exactly sure. If that is his fault, then I wanted to make sure I addressed that. Now, wide receiver wise, man, just to let you know, at halftime, no receivers had any yards. Austin Eckler had 22 yards receiving. Brian Robinson had 17, and Zach Ertz had 7 yards off of his one catch. And in comparison, we had one catch to our receiver for 0 yards. That was Luke McCaffrey on the screen. The Buccaneers had 11 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown. That's the first half comparison between our wide receivers. Jayden Daniels' targets in the first half: 3 to running backs, 2 to tight ends, 3 to receivers. Not a lot of targets to go around, man. And if you're looking at Jayden Daniels' first half stats, he had 7 rushes for 56 yards. He was 5 of 8 for 46 yards through the air. Not great. The only throw to a wide receiver was Luke McCaffrey on the screen that again went for no gain, and our leading receivers were both running backs, Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. That's not very good. I like having the running backs involved in the passing game, but they shouldn't be your leading receivers with only, again, 22 yards for Austin Eckler and 17 for Brian Robinson. That's not even a lot of yards. Also, man, shouts out to Rep the District for pointing this out, man. The Bucs had the 29th ranked defense versus the pass last year, and Washington had one target to a receiver, one completion to a receiver up to halftime. Luke McCaffrey on that bubble screen for 0 yards. Remember, Terry McLaurin had a target that was just out of bounds. It's almost hard to even consider that a target. And so basically, Terry McLaurin by halftime only had one target and no other stats to show for it. I felt so bad for him, man. There's no way he's going through this again. But Luke McCaffrey did at times look explosive in that game and fast at times, man. Especially on that 3rd and long screen where it looked like he had the option to throw it. It looked like they threw it to him on the screen, and he kind of looked like, is there somebody I can throw this ball to? Then he kept it, and he looked pretty fast and explosive out there. He was showing some of that elite athleticism that he showed in that combine, man. Also, I want to point out the fact that through 5 drives for the Commanders going into the halftime, wide receivers had 3 catches. So after halftime, through 5 drives, wide receivers had 3 catches, and Luke McCaffrey with 2, Jamison Crowder was 1, and again, Terry McLaurin was 0 up to that point. And then with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the third quarter, Terry McLaurin finally got his first target in bounds. He got 6 yards on, guess what? A screen. And the only completions we were really getting off until like midway through the fourth quarter were really just screens. But then towards the end of the game, Luke, I liked what I saw from you at times throughout the game, but how did you not get your feet in bounds on that 2-point conversion near the end of the game, man? I mean, it was a great throw on the run by Jayden Daniels. Zipped it through there. Defenders had no chance of getting it, and I mean, you gotta get your feet in bounds there. You had too much space between you and that sideline for you to not get both feet down. You really let Jayden Daniels down on that play. Now, like I said earlier, we had no business going for that 2-point conversion in the first place, but man, you gotta make sure you finish that catch. And I'm right with my boy Rio Robinson. He said next week, Noah Brown needs to start and be targeted in droves next week. And I talked about this during my live stream. I know Noah Brown does not know the offense. That's why he was inactive today. That's why he was not able to play. He's not familiar with the offense, the play calling, the terminologies, the route concepts, and things like that. He doesn't have much chemistry with Jayden Daniels, but bruh, we really need a receiver to make a play, so he better play next week against the Giants, man. Especially with as sorry as they are, he can learn the playbook on the fly, man. Get the work. And then tight end wise, I mean, I didn't really notice anybody other than Zach Ertz, who had 4 targets, 3 receptions for 28 yards. That's literally it. That's all I noticed. I don't know anything else that happened with any of the other tight ends, man. Ben Sinnott, the only thing I noticed from him was a kickoff return penalty. that he had. Like, he was offsides. He did something wrong formation-wise. And John Bates, I'm pretty sure he blocked well, but of course we didn't notice him in the pass game. Moving on to offensive line. The starting offensive line to start the game for the first two possessions was Cornelius Lucas at left tackle, Nick Allegretti at left guard, Tyler Biotish at center, Samuel Cosme at right guard, and Andrew Wiley at right tackle. And the only reason I'm giving y'all that update is the fact that Cornelius Lucas, that's the one we're looking at, left tackle, he started the first two drives. And Cornelius Lucas was not it. I mean, as soon as Coleman came into the game, Brandon Coleman, the rookie, we scored a touchdown. And Wiley struggled a bit, but I think Lucas was the worst lineman we had out there overall from the times I was really paying attention. But Wiley did give up an immediate pressure, which forced Jayden Daniels to scramble for 9 yards in the second drive of the first quarter. But the first two drives that had Lucas in, 0 points on 2 drives. And then Coleman comes in on his very first drive, the third drive of the game for the offense, and we scored a touchdown. I don't think that's necessarily a coincidence, man. I'm not going to lie to you. And then later on in the game, in the second half, like I said earlier, Lucas and Wiley both got beat immediately for a strip sack that happened on Jayden Daniels, man. So we just kept going back and forth. Cornelius Lucas started a couple of drives. The Brandon Coleman starts a couple of drives. And I only noticed Cornelius Lucas allowing Jayden Daniels to be under duress a lot. Brandon Coleman probably didn't have the perfect game, but at the very least, he looked better than Cornelius Lucas. So I think he's your starting left tackle as of right now. Moving forward, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, man, at all. I mean, I don't even think there's an argument to be made. And before we move on to the defense, just some overall thoughts for the offense. First of all, the Buccaneers had so many starters hurt on defense. There were no excuses for us, man. They were missing so many DBs, at least a linebacker or two, especially at times in the game where I think Levante David even went into the locker room at one point. They had several defensive linemen that were out before the game even started. They lost one of their starting DBs to a serious injury mid-game. There was no excuse. But at the same time, though, shouts out to 10 Top Podcast, because I completely agree. Somewhere in that third quarter, there was a really good drive by Cliff Kingsbury. It was a very calculated tempo, and it was a great thing. It was a huge advantage that I agree with them. We did not take advantage of that enough. We need to play with pace a little bit more often. That's what Jayden Daniels was at his best. You saw the flash there from Cliff Kingsbury and his play calling and play design, and we need to do that more because that was their best drive of the day. 6 plays, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Jayden Daniels was 3 of 3 of 49 yards. Brian Robinson had 3 touches for 40 yards. Jayden Daniels had a 1-yard touchdown run, the first of his career, where he hit the Quan, and McLaurin and Ertz both got involved in that drive. Can we please replicate that drive as often as possible? Also, I still don't know why we didn't go for 2 after Jayden Daniels' first touchdown run. I still don't get that one. Shouts out to Craig Hoffman because I completely agree. I do not understand not going for 2 there. But the Commanders now have a good enough analytics department and game management folks that I don't doubt it being the correct move based on the data. But I agree, as just a normal human that does not have the statistical data that these super analytical guys have, I felt like we should have went for 2 there. And it still didn't make sense to me that we went for that 2 at the end of the game when the game is over. And then I want to also point out the fact that if we had the Buccaneers kicker, we probably only would have been down by 3 points up to a certain point in that game, but the kicker was letting us down. The offense was trying to keep us in that game is my main point. Also, shouts out to MV Scout, and I completely agree. He said he really liked the design quarterback runs that Cliff cooked up. They didn't get a chance to really hit on a big one, but they're designed to create huge plays, and I can't wait to see them actually turn into them. I think it's only a matter of time. Now, moving on to the defensive side of the ball. Now, the offense was not good, but they weren't as bad as the defense, man. I'll tell you that. First of all, shouts out to Chris Russell for this one. I mean, that opening drive against the Buccaneers to start the game was terrible. Busted coverage on third down, incompletion. I just can't believe that boy Baker Mayfield was just overthrowing guys like that throughout the game. And then we had a crazy penalty against Cleveland Farrell that extended the drive that Washington had stopped through coverage on 3rd and 1. Well, I mean, that just wasn't even great. And then forced a long field goal, semi-win, and I don't know. Emmanuel Forbes did start at that point, but he didn't finish that game starting. Also, at a certain point, Benjamin St-Juste almost had a pick, and then Allen almost had a sack, and then Tampa Bay almost up 14-0. It was just a bunch of almost ball basically going on. So one theme from today's game was almost. There was so much almost all game, it was crazy. But another theme was that we just missed tackles left and right. and from the players that were assumed to be our best players, like Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Chin, just out there missing tackles, man. Shouts out to Mark Bullock. He said the disappointing part for Washington there is that they had opportunities and just didn't finish on one of those drives in the second quarter, I believe. Luvu missed the sack on Baker on third down. Wagner read a screen, read it perfectly, and got in great position, but then missed the tackle. And you just can't afford to have those mistakes, especially from key players. I completely agree. Another big theme was our inability to get off the field on third downs, man. A lot of them were third and longs, and we allowed them to convert a 3rd and 17 when we needed to stop them the most during that game, and it was like a tunnel screen, dog. That's ridiculous. And the Commanders defense after the first half gave up 200 yards and 16 points, only stopped 3 of their 8 third downs. They went 5 of 8 in the first half, didn't force a single punt, played 34 snaps and allowed 6 yards per play, gave up 115 yards to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin alone just as a duo. And Mayfield was great, but they did not confuse him enough. 16 of 19, 174 yards and a touchdown passing in the first half. Also, let's break it down like this. Bucs first half possessions: field goal, touchdown, field goal, and each and every one of those drives started in Tampa Bay territory, so they had to earn all of those points. That's ridiculous. Also, most of the way through the third quarter, my dog Serge the Shooter even had to tweet sadly, a third down stop before the Buccaneers could even cross the 50-yard line. Wow, this is amazing. I finally see a Washington punt return. That is crazy that we made it all the way until like the third quarter, deep into the third quarter, before we finally forced the punt, man. But then after that great offensive drive where Jayden had his first offensive touchdown and he hit the Quan, the defense gave the Buccaneers the points right back. A 5-play 72-yard drive. I mean, come on now. We just got the lead down to 9, and then they just allowed them to go right back and get those points immediately. That was crazy. Shouts out to Craig Hoffman for this. He said guys getting beat is one thing, but coverage busts are unacceptable. That's one you're super ticked about if you're Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn, man. And I'm not sure who to blame. If I need to look at the all 22 footage. Is it their fault? Was it the players? It's hard to say. It's probably a mix of both, but that was ugly. Shouts out to my boy Ken Johannesson for this one. He said 30 points allowed by the start of the fourth quarter is simply unacceptable. This feels a lot like last year. It's only the first game, but this is very concerning. I completely agree. We can't overreact because this is week 1 of a rebuild, but dang, man. And then shouts out to Kevin Sheehan for saying this. He said the Bucs receiving core is excellent, but this is just a dreadful debut for the Quinn Joe Witt Jr. defense. Plain and simple, no matter how good that Buccaneers receiving core is. Coverage is insanely bad all day. Lucky Mayfield wasn't sharp on his first 2 throws too, because it could have been worse. He was missing receivers while they were open. Shouts out to Mark Tyler for this. He said, "Is the scheme? What is the scheme in the secondary? Or is it the scheme? Is it the players? Is it the lack of communication among so many of the pieces?" And he basically said all of the above with a GIF. And then later on, at a certain point in the game, the Buccaneers had 37 points and averaged 7 yards per play. Up to a certain point in the game, I think we were in the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield threw for 4 touchdowns, and the Bucs only punted once and converted 9 of their 13 third downs up to a certain point in that game. That's crazy. Up to that point, Baker Mayfield was 24 of 30 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns. He looked like literally his Oklahoma version of himself. That ended up getting outdueled by my Georgia Bulldogs in the playoffs, but we're not even here to talk about that, man. Also, shouts out to @We1Dallas for pointing this out. The Washington Commanders allowed 5.9 yards per play last year defensively, which was the second worst out of the entire NFL, right? How about at a certain point in this game, and by the time we were in the fourth quarter at some point, they allowed 6.7 yards per play. And they were down 23 with 2 minutes left at that point. That is a disastrous start for a defensive-minded Dan Quinn-led team. I completely agree. So again, today we were worse on defense than we were as an overall team last year. That's not good that we're taking steps back, y'all. That's not good at all. And also, just one last update before we move on to specific position groups, starting with the D-line. Tampa Bay went 9 of 13 on third down, 69.2% attempts on Sunday. Good for the 6th highest success rate in a single game in franchise history. Tampa Bay's 69.2% offensive third down success rate leads the NFL right now. Conversely, the Buccaneers limited the Commanders to 2 of 8, 25% on third downs opportunities, just to let you know where we were offensively and how bad we were defensively. Now moving on to the defensive line. Now I'm not gonna lie, they got a lot of pressure today. Baker Mayfield was under duress a lot today. He took a lot of hits, but they just couldn't finish. Like I said, one of the main themes today was that there was a lot of almost, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the defensive line part of the ball. I mean, there's just no way we had Baker Mayfield's in our hands that much and ended up with only 1 sack for the day, man. I mean, Mayfield broke like 4 sacks in the first half alone, and it seemed like he made plays every time he broke a sack, man. And they were just so back-breaking, like drive continuing plays, third down and things like that. Y'all gotta find a way to get these quarterbacks down, man. I mean, we were getting really good pressure. The only problem was we just weren't converting those pressures into sacks, man. If we look at our pressure rate, it's probably high, but it didn't feel like it mattered because he was just escaping to make a play. And the scariest part to me is that not only do we have to go against other mobile quarterbacks this season, but most importantly, we have to go against quarterbacks who are more mobile than Baker Mayfield. Like, how about Lamar Jackson when we got to play the Ravens? If we can't bring down Baker Mayfield when we have him by the waist, imagine what we're going to do, try to run around and chase Lamar Jackson all day. I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. I'm afraid. But shouts out to Jayden Davis, because in that first half, he was doing something. He had 3 run stuffs for like 0 or less yards, like at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage in like the first 18 minutes of the game. 3 of them. Now, I lost track of him after that. I didn't notice his impact beyond that, so maybe he disappeared. Maybe he didn't have a good second half, but he made some plays in that first half, and I was happy to see it, man. Also, we did eventually get a sack. The first sack of the game and the first sack of the season for the Washington Commanders came from Clelin Ferrell. It was a good job of using his hands and getting some nice ball get off as soon as the ball was snapped. But really, it was Daron Payne pushing the pocket that allowed that sack to happen. So shouts out to Daron Payne, even though it's not going to show up in the stat sheet. You did a great job there, allowing Clelin Ferrell, basically being the catalyst for how Clelin Ferrell got that sack. Also, I want to show you this play right here to basically summarize what I mean by the almost going on all day. Look at this picture right here, man. Would you believe that if you didn't watch this game, that after this picture, Baker Mayfield somehow gained 16 yards on the ground running the ball? Like, that is insane, man. It looks like we have him wrapped up right there. Shouts out to Craig Hoffman, because he said, I don't know what this defense did on Finish Friday. That's the thing that they say about practice and things like that. But scrap it and let's try again. The amount of third downs they've had Baker Mayfield surrounded only not to finish is just not good enough. Someone's got to make a play. I completely agree. It's hard to even blame coach in there. I mean, I felt like overall the defensive line whooped the Buccaneers offensive line. I really do. I feel like especially a lot of that game, they did a great job of beating the guy in front of them. They just couldn't bring down Baker Mayfield. Shouts out to Mark Tyler for this one. He said, I know some of you are upset about Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, but when you rewatch this game, you'll see the latter actually did show up and played better than most are giving him credit for. I agree. Jonathan Allen, I remember one significant play that he made where he had like a tackle that, boy, if he didn't make that tackle, who knows who would have. It probably would have been like a long rushing touchdown or something, who knows. But outside of that, Daron Payne, from what I noticed, was the better between the two. But I feel like overall, both of them are getting too much hate from this fan base. I feel like people really need to go back and watch what Daron Payne especially was doing out there. Now moving on to the linebackers, and we're going to talk about the secondary soon, but I really expected the secondary to struggle coming into this game. Like, I kind of expected that. First of all, because of who we have in our secondary, especially outside corner specifically, but also who we matched up against. Like, I mean, I kind of expected that. But I did not expect Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu to play so poorly for most of the game. They had their moments, but boy, they were useless on screens, dog. Bad angles, not disengaging from blockers. I mean, just giving us nothing on screens. That's why they kept spamming them. I mean, at a certain point, Bobby Wagner did have his best moment of the day with 9 minutes left in the fourth. Back-to-back plays with elite run stops for like 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage in the backfield on both of them. Like, elite. He like, I don't know, he got into game breaker mode from NFL Street those 2 plays. But then he reverted right back to his first half self on that 3rd and 17 screen where we gave up a first down on 3rd and 17 on a screen, and he didn't even seem to try on that play. It looked like he used up all of his energy on those previous 2 elite plays that he made and then just had nothing left in the tank for that 3rd down play. And it made me question, when I was really looking at like how they were converting 3rd downs, especially using screens, it made me question, why can't we do that on offense? Why can't we do that? I mean, they made converting 3rd downs look so easy because how poorly our defense played, most notably our linebackers on 3rd downs. And so I'm just looking like, hey, Cliff Kingsbury, can we maybe steal some of that sauce and use it for ourselves, man? Now moving on to the corners. And yeah, Mike Evans killed us. And I kind of expected that coming into the game, man, even though it was worse than I expected, though. I'm not going to lie. He killed us a little bit more than I was expecting. I mean, he has the longest active streak of 1,000-yard seasons out of the entire NFL for a reason. And coming into the season, we were very concerned about both our receivers and our outside corners coming into this game. And I feel like both of those fears were definitely justified. Like, there's a reason we were afraid of those positions. We saw the proof. And St. Juice, man, he almost had an interception on a really good coverage play at one time. But, man, he really had problems getting his head turned around in the previous regular seasons. And then we saw it again, him getting beat by a backup receiver for a touchdown in that Dolphins preseason game. And then he got beat for 2 touchdowns against Mike Evans, where he didn't get his head turned around again. That just seems to be his Achilles heel right now. Honestly, though, we really don't have a corner on this team that could truly cover Mike Evans. But St. Juice, with his height and length, probably gave us the best shot. And that's really the scariest part, man. The fact that that Benjamin St. Juice gave us our best shot at him and still got beat like that is crazy, man. And then shouts out to Kareem for this one. He said St. Juice covers guys, but then he just lets them catch it. It really is weird. He's right there with them the entire time. It's not like he's just getting beat bad, but boy, he just doesn't get his head turned around. He doesn't he doesn't actually attack the ball, make a play on the ball. And shouts out to Bucket because he said, nah, he's a perfect compliment to our D-line. The almost plays all-stars. Again, that was the theme of the entire day, man. I completely agree. And shouts out to @DC Sports XP because he said the secondary was a part of the team that probably couldn't get fully resourced in one offseason. Peters and Quinn know it needs work. Gonna have to deal with that. Deal with what they have in 2024 right now. We went into this regular season knowing, yeah, this cornerback group, man, we have some concerns. And to DC Sports Experience's point, and like I've been saying out throughout the entire offseason, you can't fix the entire team in one offseason. So we were going to have some weaknesses. Cornerback just happens to be one of the main ones right now, and that's just something we know we need to address in this offseason, draft and free agency. But Joe Wood Jr. at the same time had them playing some really soft coverage a lot of the day, if anything, all day. Joe Wood Jr. had them corners playing scared, man. Bend but don't break mentality instead of like the turnover hunting that we were promised. I thought we were going to hunt for turnovers, but they were playing really passive, like bend but don't break type of defense. But I understand, though, at the end of the day, when you really think about it, we don't really have the guys to do what they did in Dallas. I guess that's what it seems like, and it just feels like they didn't really trust their secondary to do what they want to do. And they even had Mike Sanders still outside at times too, man. You could tell they were just trying anything. Anything they could try, they tried at this game, man. They even got to a point where it looked like they benched Emmanuel Forbes. At first, it seemed like it was just a rotational thing, but at a certain point, man, in a red zone situation, Noah Igbenogany was literally put into the game in place of Emmanuel Forbes. And then later on in the game, Emmanuel Forbes somehow managed to get 2 accepted penalties in a single play. And he went to the sideline and took off his helmet before the ref could even announce what the penalties were. So you could tell that they pulled him off the field at that point. Dan Quinn and Joe Jr. were like, you got to sit down, man. I mean, honestly, though, like when you really think about it, how do you get 2 accepted penalties against you on one play, man? Like, that is crazy. Like, I laughed at that. And then the very next play was a touchdown throw, which was even sadder. But, man, Emmanuel Forbes, that wasn't good, man. Shouts out to Craig Hoffman. He said, I'm not giving up on Forbes forever after week 1, but his week 1 has been bad. Not enough urgency, not enough trust in his technique. Just a really bad game from what we can see on the TV. I completely agree. And Again, our biggest concerns coming into the season were receiver and corner, and it looked like it in that game, I tell you. But Noah Igbenogany did have good coverage late in the third quarter at times, so we'll see what happens there, if Noah Igbenogany is just officially the starter from here on out, or if that was just we need to bench Forbes for now to see if we can try to get something going in this game, and then maybe if Manuel Forbes is a starter again next week, we'll see. Moving on to the safeties just real quick. I mean, Jeremy Chin, I have a lot of hopes for him. I think he could be a really good safety for us, but he was missing tackles in that first half. But then he started to make some good open field tackles in the second half. So at least there's a sign of improvement there, at least from him. I didn't see a lot of improvement from a lot of guys, but Jeremy Chin started to get better as that game went on. And yeah, Bobby Wagner led our team in total tackles, but Quan Martin led our team in solo tackles and saved some big plays with some great open field tackles, because some of those running plays where, like, I mean, some guys just went untouched at times, and it seemed like Quan Martin, our last line of defense, was our only hope from stopping them from getting like 60-yard touchdown runs. Shouts out to him for making those tackles. I don't feel like he was great in coverage, but at least he made some great open field tackles. Now moving on to special teams, man, we still need a kicker. We are in the same position we were weeks ago, months ago. We need a kicker, man, and I knew that there was something fishy. We're in that third preseason game against the Patriots, and I even said this in my game review video after that Patriots preseason game a couple of weeks ago. The fact that both of his kicks that he made were in that preseason game were like 36 yards or shorter. So it was still like, well, can he actually make kicks that we really need him to make, like 40 yards, 50 yards, and things like that? So I knew it was something fishy, but I didn't expect it to be that bad, man, because his first kick since being traded for, we traded a 7th rounder for him, man. He missed that 47-yarder, and that was after the Buccaneers kicker made like a 55, 56-yarder, so there's no excuses. You had an easier kick to him, and you missed. And then you can't even kick it on kickoffs, man. Come on now, new kickoff rules. You're way closer to the opposite end zone where you're kicking towards, and you still kicked it out of bounds instead of just in the back of the end zone. You should be able to make a field goal kick from there, let alone kicking it out of bounds. That was crazy. That was when I really gave up with him. I mean, at a certain point, he missed a field goal. He barely made an extra point on the Jayden Daniels first touchdown, and then he kicked the ball out of bounds, and then that ended up leading to 3 points for the Buccaneers because they started with great field position. I mean, that's just crazy how much of an impact K. York had on this game, man. He missed kicks. His kicking it out of bounds led to points for the Buccaneers offense. Come on, dog. And shouts out to DC Sports XP, because I agree, the defense was objectively bad, but it doesn't help when you give the other team starting field position from missed kicks and kickoff penalties. The Bucs started on their own 40, 37, and 46 because of the Commanders' kicking woes. I completely agree there. Point K. York out, man. And then he missed a 56-yarder. And first of all, there's no excuses because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, again, their kicker made like a 56-yarder for like the first field goal points of the game. I believe it was like 55, 56 or something like that. But I was looking like, well, he missed a 47. Why are we even asking him to kick a 56-yarder? Our kicker is so bad, we probably should have just went ahead and punted it right there instead of kicking that 56-yarder. We traded a 7th for this guy. If we had a decent kicker, at a certain point in that game, it should have been 13-16 rather than 7-16. I mean, he literally kicked us out of that game. And then K. York had the nerve to go out there and do a terrible onside kick at the end of the day, towards the end of the game as well. And I was just looking like, well, what can you do right? You can't kick field goals. You barely made the extra point. You can't do kickoffs in this new kickoff rule environment, which is just, I mean, mind-boggling. That was the worst thing he did all day. You know, missing the 47-yarder was one thing, but like kicking it out of bounds in the kickoff was probably the worst thing he did all day. But then you can't even do onside kicks as well. So I'm literally just looking like, what did you do? What did you do well today? But lastly, before we leave special teams and other special teams news, since we cut Byron Pringle coming into the game, I was wondering, leading up to the game, who would be the kick returner next to Olamide Zaccheaus? Well, from what I noticed at times, it was Austin Eckler back there from what I saw. So that was pretty cool, just to give y'all that update for those of y'all that may have been wondering. Now let's move on to the entire team before we move on to some overall reviews from some notable Commanders, media members, and things like that, because I feel like they did a great job of really just summarizing overall what happened in this game. So first of all, rookie-wise, they seem to pretty much struggle as a whole. The rookie class struggled as a whole. Now, Johnny Newton, Jordan McGee, and Dominique Hampton were out. Johnny Newton's hurt, Jordan McGee's hurt, and then Dominique Hampton, they just kept him inactive because he's pretty much not ready to play yet. But then Jayden Daniels was exciting, but not great overall in my opinion. Luke McCaffrey did what he could outside of not getting his feet in bounds on that 2-point conversion attempt at the end of the game that I'm still mad at him for. John Baptiste had a sack that he just couldn't hold on to. And I didn't really notice Ben Sinnott other than that kickoff penalty that he had. And then Mike Sanford still was surprisingly pretty bad. And then you have Brandon Coleman. And even though he didn't start at left tackle all game, from what I saw, he was pretty good. So if I had to rank rookie performances, like rank our rookie class, I think Brandon Coleman probably had the best overall day from what I noticed. Not to say that he had a great game, but he was the least of the bad at the very least. It was just an ugly showing really from our entire rookie class overall, but do not condemn them. This is their first games ever. This is their first, first rookie, week 1 rookie season. So don't overreact. But yeah, the rookies did not look as good, especially like Mike Sanford still was. He was the guy that I was probably the most disappointed in. And shouts out to Commander's Realm, because this is another good point. Seems like the only issue that we really seemed to fix going from last year to this year was long snapper. I thought that was hilarious, but as of right now, it looks true. Now, I don't believe that it will be true. I think we'll make some adjustments, especially against the sorry Giants. We should look better against them. But from that week 1 performance, it looks like the only way that we improved was quarterback running ability, maybe left tackle in Brandon Coleman, and then long snapper. That's literally about it. Now, to summarize, the overall game from guys like JP Finley and some of the beat writers, media members, and some of my guys that I follow on Twitter, because I feel like they brought up excellent points, and I want to make sure I give those guys credit, so that's why I'm reading it from their tweets exactly. Starting with JP Finley, he said that the Dotson trade wasn't enough of a reminder. This Commanders team was real bad last year and has serious work to do before they're competitive again. Management knows this. They are definitely questions and problems from this game, but talent-wise, they're just years behind. They're just not ready. Now, I may not be that pessimistic. I feel like they can, make some adjustments and turn it around and actually be fairly competitive this year. I'm not expecting us to make the playoffs, or I'm definitely not expecting us to be Super Bowl contenders, but I'm not just completely punting on the season like we're about to be a top 5 pick team. So I'm somewhere in the middle right there. Shouts out to my boy Nick Ackridge at the Pro Football Focus. He said, this game confirmed a lot of my fears, but it's just one game, so I'll bite my tongue for now. This roster was very, very bad, and it takes time to get all of the new players on the same page. I completely agree. Then shouts out to Damian Bartneck on Twitter. He said the good, Jayden and Brian Robinson. That's it. The man, Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler, Terry McLaurin can't use game flow, PC against them, and Tress Way. The bad, just about everybody else, but then specifically awful, Emmanuel Forbes and K. York. I probably agree with that ranking system right there. I thought that was an interesting way to put it. Then my boy Mason Kinahan, he said, yes, I get it's a new regime and we're rebuilding, but maybe we could not play like the worst defense in the league, right? I completely agree there. We didn't have to look that bad. Shouts out to All Gaudi for this. He said, hideous debut for the Commanders' new coaching staff. Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and Joe Wood Jr. have a lot to answer for and very little to feel good about. One thing about this team that was supposed to be for sure was that it would be better coached. We didn't see that at all. And I mean, we saw flashes from the offense at times, but yeah, that was just terrible overall. I don't even know exactly how to assess the players or the coaching, because I feel like everything was just bad. Then shouts out to my boy at Commander's Realm. He said thoughts from today's loss at Tampa. He said Jayden looked fine, rookie mistakes, but also showed that he's capable of what he's capable of. No turnovers, but team didn't help him as well. O-line wasn't terrible, but I think Jayden Daniels' legs masked some of their mistakes. I agree. Forbes isn't even worth dressing anymore. Dang, so he's saying don't even play him. St. Juice would be the worst corner in the league if Forbes didn't exist. Golly. Entire secondary looked like Rivera gave them a pregame speech. The rush was there at times, but like previous years, it couldn't finish. Boy, next week's kicker isn't on the roster. I agree. K. York needs to be gone now. Way too many missed tackles. Agree. They've got to get the receivers more involved. I agree. Dan Quinn had a few clock errors. We talked about that. I agree as well. A lot of the same issues seem to have carried over from last year, especially on the defensive side. That is very concerning, and I agree. And Jamin Davis made some plays. I'm right with you there. Then you have Scott, Abraham at Scott7 News, he said, Commanders fans, use any adjective you want, but to put it simply, this wasn't a good performance. It's one game, it's the first week of the season, but a lot of work to do in this team. They'll be better next week, and it's probably going to be because they're not only are they just can't be worse than what they were against the Buccaneers, and they're also going to have a week to practice, so they should get better. The main thing is that we don't have team chemistry right now. We have the most roster turnover out of the NFL, so we're supposed to be off to the slowest start out of the entire NFL. Remember, this is week 1. And then also, third, we're going against the New York Giants, who may be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Daniel Jones looks really bad, so we should look better next week, but I'm not entirely too sure if that's because we actually are better or if the Giants are just that bad. Also, shouts out to my boys at Tan Top Podcast. They said it's tough to preach new era when things look exactly the way they did with the last era. That is scary, but we still underestimate how bad this team was last year. Gonna take time, and this is a humbling reminder. What's crazy is that we started last year 2-0. We're starting this year 0-1. So that is scary. Then shouts out to my boys at We Want Dallas. He said, my biggest concern today isn't so much the team performance, despite an unfathomably worse defensive performance this game than last year, arguably the worst handling of finding a new starting kicker in franchise history, but the objective strategic stuff. The time management, extra points, or go for 2, go for it, or don't type of stuff. I really thought Harris, with how analytics and minded he is supposed to be, or Peters would have gotten that figured out, but we're still making objectively incorrect dinosaur decisions and mistakes from a decade ago. It's a D grade today from the whole franchise, top to bottom. Again, we hired Dave Gardy to handle a lot of that stuff. I don't know where he was. I don't know what he was thinking. Then shouts out to Paul Connor. He said Ron Rivera really drafted like he hated Washington. I completely agree. It really feels like that. Also, shouts out to @Burgundy Blog. He said entirely new staff and roster, losing to a solid team on the road does not surprise or concern me, but getting both out schemed and out competed does concern me. I completely agree there. Then DCZ Wall on Twitter said, yeah, Travis Hunter will be playing both wide receiver and corner for the Commanders next season. Hey man, with him being from the Metro Atlanta area, I welcome any player from North Georgia period. So I would be ecstatic to get a guy like a Travis Hunter, man. We just make them different down here. You know what I'm saying? And also to go back to the whole Rivera thing. Christian Gonzalez had to cover Jamar Chase today. Only 3 catches allowed, 14 yards allowed. Come on now. That's a moment of silence in itself compared to how Emmanuel Forbes looked out there today. The fact that Christian Gonzalez looks like that much lockup, and I felt like all of us fans wanted Christian Gonzalez over Emmanuel Forbes with that 13th overall pick or whatever it was, and Ron Rivera overthought it, and they just thought they were the smartest guys in the room and took it Emmanuel Forbes. I'm still rooting for Emmanuel Forbes to be great because he's here, so what can you really do? It's no point in rooting against him, but of course we got to call him out for being terrible, which he was today, but that really does suck to see Christian Gonzalez over there balling out for the Patriots, and we're stuck with Emmanuel Forbes getting benched. Also, Jamison Williams, another wide receiver that we should have had, but Ron Rivera decided to trade back and get Jahan Dotson. We ended up trading him away. Jamison Williams is starting to show the flashes as to why he was my favorite receiver in that whole draft. I love George Pickens as well. He's making plays for the Steelers. Could have had him, but it is what it is. Now, post-game wise, both Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juste talked post-game. Thank goodness. I felt like they needed to address whatever that was. And both said they took lessons from the loss and know exactly where they went wrong on all of the big plays. Forbes didn't specify the nature of his injury, though, other than saying that it's minor, so he is dealing with an injury. Dan Quinn said that he didn't see the hitting and the energy that they were looking for, so that was surprising. He was shocked by how his team played today. He thought that through the offseason they looked better than that, and I thought they did too, so I was a little shocked as well. So even Dan Quinn is like, I don't know what that was. They did not look how we coached them to look all offseason. He said that they will take the lessons because if you don't, the pain isn't worth it. And I like that quote, man. If you don't learn your lessons, then the pain is not worth it. It's pain nonetheless, but at least learn from it so you can avoid further pain. Dan Quinn also said that he thought the preparation was really good going in, which is really concerning. It's not like they felt like they had a bad practice and then, okay, we went into week 1 and played poorly. They felt like they had a good game plan coming in and still looked that bad. That is concerning long term, I'm not gonna lie. And then Dan Quinn was asked about potentially bringing in another kicker. He said, quote, I think we'll have a good talk about that, unquote. And that's not aggressive enough. I need to hear the that K. York was released immediately after the game, and we're already looking for a new kicker. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not the type to just jump to conclusions, jump the gun, and make hasty decisions immediately, but I'm sick of this kicker situation. Can we please bring in the next guy and the next guy if we have to? Let's just figure it out, man. Let's give everybody an opportunity. And then before we get up out of here, I have another few more random updates. Shouts out to @Seawall Sports again, because she tweeted, so when she was down there at the end of the game in the tunnel, she said there's some unhappy faces going into the Commanders locker room. Let's see if they're unhappy enough to make actionable changes for the better. I was ready to see growing pains, but that wasn't growing pains. That was just bad. I completely agree. Also, speaking of Emmanuel Forbes, with him going to the x-ray room and things like that because he had an injury, my boy Bleeding Burgundy and Gold said fractured ego was the injury. I thought that was hilarious. I had to include that there. Also, just to let you know, the Giants do play in Landover on Sunday. The loser falls to 0-2. So whoever loses between the Giants or the Commanders, between this booty bowl we about to have, two sorry teams, it looks like, whoever loses falls to 0-2. Also, just to let you know, the Commanders open as 3-point favorites against the Giants next week. So keep that in mind as well. We're looked at as the better team between the two, but boy, we can't play how we played against the Buccaneers and hope to be even a team as bad as the Giants. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, man. I really appreciate y'all staying tuned. I know this video is coming out late. I'm just now finishing recording this 6:55 a.m. Y'all probably won't get this video edited and uploaded to y'all till like 8 a.m. I don't even know when I'm gonna really get a chance to sleep tomorrow. I guess I'll sleep all throughout the day, wake up at night. I don't know, but I really appreciate y'all for pulling up to the live stream, especially leaving the likes, everybody that donated to the Cash App through the super chat. I really appreciate y'all. And for all of y'all in this video, let me know how you feel about this game. First of all, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the points that I made. Maybe you saw something differently. Again, I can't see everything, and I only rewatched the game through like highlights one more time before I started this video. I can't wait to see the all 22 footage to really get a better idea of what was going on. So let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I said. Also, let me know how you feel about this game. What were your takeaways? But bad, good, if you can find any good, let me know all of that. And again, do not leave this video without leaving a like. Stay tuned, because I'm coming to y'all with daily uploads, especially now that I'm back home. I'm back in Atlanta, so I'm here to live stream every game and bring y'all videos every single day. So stay tuned. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.